seems was never fair. I'd rather be this starving artist, experience life now at its farthest. One blue sky, we are under, torn and shred now, ripped asunder. The politics, war and famine. I thank God I'm still here jamming.
What's up, folks? I'm about to open up a real can of worms. Now, what is it that I'm talking about here? What I'm talking about is, why are all these people sitting around waiting for some sort of intervention? I mean, whether it's God, whether it's aliens, or whether it's some apocalyptic event which will take us away from the norm. Now, in a lot of ways, I see similarities between these three things. And the similarities between the three things aren't necessarily in the similarities between the three things themselves, but the similarity resides in the reasoning behind why it is that people internally strive for these events to actually occur and take place. First and foremost is people desire change. They desire change from the monotonous nature of their day-to-day lives. And they think that as soon as one of these events occurs, it represents an extraordinary change from the normal day-to-day life which they experience. They're unhappy in some way and in some sense, because if you were happy and comfortable, then you wouldn't want any of these events to actually take place. So therefore, the first similarity between these three events is that the true underlying reason as to why people would want them to take place is because they want ultimate change within their lives. Think about it for a second. People want God to intervene because they think that on Judgment Day, which I guess is similar to an apocalyptic event, they think that God will have all the answers to the problems that are represented here upon the face of the planet today. All the ailments that they experience and all of these other things which they go through that they dislike will then be taken care of. The same thing is seen with intervention from a third kind. I mean, when aliens come, supposedly they're so far advanced to us that, you know, they will bring answers and solutions to all the problems and conundrums that we face on a day-to-day basis. But I'm really going to pose some sort of, problem with why it is that if we haven't been regularly visited with aliens on a day-to-day basis today, that it's really not going to happen at all. And kind of the same notion goes for the likes of God as well, because as soon as you truly understand the depths of God, you understand that all things take place for you to experience life itself. All of those things which you're harboring as a negative experience are there because they're a requirement for life to actually be experienced and to actually live. So anyways, now I like to compare the situation to, what is it, the Prime Directive on, Star Trek, where they have the Prime Directive where they can't intervene with developing civilizations. Well, if that really were the case, I think that this is like a really dumb motivation for them to have, because that's like saying that something that develops on my street, I can't necessarily go and help the neighboring household over there. I can't help them understand or hook up their plumbing because this was developed here in my piece of property in my land, and it's like unethical for me to go over and help somebody else understand the principles that I've come across. And it's like, saying that we can't travel to a third world country on the planet today and educate the citizens basic principles of, morals, ethics, philosophies, science, the arts, literature, and things to that extent, because we're intervening in their developmental growth. It's like saying that I can't literally communicate an idea to any other person because I'm being unethical if I do so. They literally, upon their own, experience and self have to come across this knowledge and this understanding and this enlightenment. So that whole prime directive notion is just a bunch of hogwash in my playbook. But anyways, for the same reason that people yearn for intervention from God is the same reason that they yearn for intervention from alien life or extraterrestrials, because they think as soon as they come, it represents their salvation from all that they hate, which is manifested upon the planet today. And so that is why a lot of these people, they have these visions of these things which are going to occur, because they internally want change. For the same reason people love change is the same reason that they love stagnation. Without the other, neither could actually be. And so what we find is that in a lot of cases, people actually manifest their internal desires upon reality itself. In that, if a group of individuals are subconsciously wanting an apocalyptic event to actually occur, then what's going to happen is they're actually going to literally create this event. Just like in the same fashion, people actually create some sense of a living deity upon the face of the planet as they actually act upon the belief systems that they believe deity itself would act upon. And so they form organized bodies which in essence act as though they themselves feel deity would. And so in a sense we have living and walking superorganisms acting as what people believe deity would do upon the face of the planet, influencing it and having its will control the face of the planet itself and restructure it and reorganize the matter upon it to give it a new face, so to speak. And depending on how strong the voice is, meaning that they can organize a group of individuals to act in a manner in alignment with one goal, then they have just that much more power to influence the shape of the planet and what it is that we see as reality today. And so anyways, I just felt like touching up on a few of those topics. And something else that I wanted to touch up upon is in the new Alien Covenant movie, when David is fighting with Walter, one of them brings up the notion, I think it's Walter, yeah, he brings up the notion, you know, brother, you can reign in hell or you can be a servant in heaven. I think it goes something along those lines. Don't quote me verbatim on that, but that's pretty much the gist of what they said, I do so believe. And anyways, what that kind of means is that everybody's trying to like run up this ladder, so to speak, and as soon as you pretty much become God and the one who's ruling over the rest of the class, then in a sense you become the devil, because it took a lot of demonic action to actually gain the position itself. And you know, as soon as you're something that actually seeks power, the actual action itself of seeking this position of power is actually, in a sense, demonic influence. And so the one who really does represent like the most moral and ethical characteristics is literally the one who serves, because they are not somebody who is necessarily desirable of this, you know, this powerful position. And it's like when, you know, Satan appears and offers Christ all the world, you know, and he pretty much backs off and says, that's not, you know, my cup of tea. Like, you can go off and do that. And a lot of people say, you know, you can gain the world, but for the price of your soul. That's kind of along the same lines as that quote, which we hear within the movie itself. You know, you can pretty much be God, but at the same point in time, in doing so, you become the devil himself. And you know, it's kind of ironic in a lot of ways, because a lot of people like to separate the devil from the one God, but if there really is the one God, then all things come from this one God, including the devil himself. So God is literally the devil, is he not? I mean, But in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same form and fashion, in that all this is just information communicating with each other. And so in this, it's really just one, you know, if you're zooming out on it, it's just one big organized system itself communicating. And there's really no separation between all this information. But the fact of the matter is, we're experiencing it, and what we know from our experience based upon our rationale and our ability to actually gain a sense of our surroundings and reality itself, we come to understand that there is actually a lot of separation, you know, between a lot of things, and I am separate from a lot of things, and I gain information and I lose information, and I learn and I forget, and all of those sorts of things. And so it's this very complex thing, and St. Augustine goes into this a lot, you know, saying, how can I be a product of God, but at the same point in time, I don't know God and I'm separate from him, but since God is God, I can't be separate from God at the same point in time. You know, it's like my cellular makeup is actually this whole complex thing which understands the most complex realities of the universe itself to be able to function, but I necessarily, you know, I can't necessarily bring all of this knowledge to the forefront of my thought and simply consciously regurgitate this information, which my cells know, you know, the most complex things from physics, astrophysics, or, you know, microbiology and chemistry in the utmost of detail, because it literally wouldn't be able to function or be without this knowledge. But I can't necessarily write this down on paper. It's kind of what St. Augustine is saying, you know. I'm a part of all this, but I don't know anything about it. And it's like a paradox. And another thing that I wanted to talk about while I'm on camera is I'm really into like ancient myth and lore. And if I could, I would bring back like ancient deity, because I don't know if I'm just kind of like falling into that whole thing that I was talking about previously, where it's like I'm just kind of wanting change or something like that, because something has been so common in my life growing up, so it's like I'm ready for something new. But you know, this whole like Judeo-Christian image that's like spread across the face of the globe, I'm ready for, like, you know, to see like erected statues like 2,000 feet high of like the Roman god of like Mars or something like that, you know, like and I think that a lot of the manifestation of deity actually comes from belief, and as people organize and act on these beliefs. And so literally whatever deity becomes the most acted upon deity within regards to a populace becomes the one that becomes the living deity upon the face of the planet, as the people in a lot of ways embody the deity itself. And I live right next to an air base. We gotta wait for Uncle Sam to fly over, so yeah, now that F-16 or whatever is gone, I don't know, F-22, whatever it was, some airplane. But yeah, I'm really into like ancient myth and lore, and so, you know, it's like Mars, the Roman god of war. It's like, if you really think about it, everything is war, and you know, all's fair in love and war. And if Mars is the pinnacle of war, then Mars could be the supreme deity above all other deities, because if Mars is the one who literally understands the art of war itself to the utmost it can be understood, then this would also mean that they were literally the pinnacle and at the forefront of deity itself, because you could literally, you know, converge every other notion into an ideal of war itself. But I could probably do that with every other facet of knowledge in regards to the specific piece of knowledge I'm talking about anyways, so that kind of trumps my own argument there. But I do that quite a bit, contradict myself quite a lot. And so, like with a lot of things, I just kind of stick with something and then go with it, whether not even, you know, I might not even believe in it. I just kind of like hold my ground and become like concrete in that position, because literally utilizing like forms of discussion and argument, you can sway anybody from any position. So I think in a lot of ways you just have to like just say something and stick with it, and whether or not you believe in it or not. But otherwise you're just somebody that goes around, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, okay. And I don't like to be that guy, so I just sit there, and whether or not I like, and then as soon as somebody like attacks that position, then it's like what I've believed in like my entire life, and like you better watch out, because now it's like, even though I was like trolling around with the thought at first, now that somebody actually came back at me, I'm like, all of a sudden it's like what I've believed in since I could believe in anything. And so it's like I defend it to like a death, you know. But going back to like this ancient myth and lore, it's like the other day I was touching upon the notion of like Prometheus and Zeus overthrowing the Titans. And in a lot of ways Prometheus allowed us, the upcoming and rising civilization, to overthrow those previous to us as well. Just as Zeus overthrew the Titans, and Prometheus gave, you know, the slaves of Olympus the ability to overthrow the Olympians. And it's like this, you know, parable within a metaphor, you know, within a motif and a, you know, symbolism scattered throughout the entire story, where, you know, Prometheus eternally has to repeat this cycle of getting his liver eaten out and then regrown, just as, you know, the wheat rises and falls and every upcoming generation overthrows the previous, but in reality the wheat never really changes. It just likes to believe that this season of wheat is literally the season, and so we disregard, you know, all previous notions presented from previous generations, and think that our generation is the one which deserves, you know, everything. And in a lot of ways there's so much within these stories told by the ancients. And for example, the story of Daedalus and Icarus. And it's like Daedalus was the maze builder, but in a lot of ways he was like presented as a supreme deity without being one, because he built the maze which houses the beast, you know, the Minotaur. But it's representative that each of us have a Minotaur within us. And the amazement, right, the amazement of life is what actually traps the Minotaur within it, as we get lost in amazement within the maze of life itself. And it keeps the Minotaur under control, and, you know, as we're lost within the maze, and that's representative of God creating this life for us, where we're kind of lost in this maze and in this daze and in this haze. And, you know, every single thing can be representative in a fashion of the devil if we look at it in that sort of light. And if we look at those features, and if we accentuate those features, then we can see a demon inside everybody. And, you know, we can feed that side of them until they literally become the devil themselves. Well, anyways, you know, Icarus is the one who flew too high, he thirsted too much, and he drank so much that he drowned, right? And in a lot of ways, we can find ourselves doing that. And we can be so thirsty that we end up drinking so much that we end up drowning ourselves. And so, you know, the story is a story within a story. It's a story about, you know, kind of like, obviously it's parabolical to like the Goldilocks zone and, you know, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but then also there's just a little more to it, you know, and kind of this relationship between the artist and the painting, right? And, you know, in a lot of ways the painting is what influences the artist, and the artist is what influences the painting. And, you know, getting lost in the maze is kind of the best way to go about it, rather than trying to go crazy trying to find your way out and end up drowning. And there's one more thing that I kind of want to touch upon, and that is my website. I started this website called Intelligent Design, and if any of you want to check it out, you should check it out, because I have a lot of things which I put together that I am selling for people to, you know, represent themselves with a certain type of image as they go throughout their day. And these are clothes and gear that I myself wear. So yeah, go check it out. Follow me on my Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. Just look me up, and go visit my website. So depending on whether or not I start getting enough sales on this, I'm going to actually end up getting probably my own domain and setting up you know, some sort of reliable server or whatever, so that I can keep running something rather than like this offshoot of a domain site or something like that to host my material for your pleasure. Well, anyways, the sun's going down, and that means that it's time for my thoughts to slow down as well, and to allow myself to enter into the other realm of reality, which is the dream realm. And it's kind of ironic that we call it the dream realm, because as we're in waking life, people call life a dream, but you know, I dream within life, and you know, some people are living the dream, but truly for me to dream, I have to be asleep, which means that I'm caught up in what I'm doing, not thinking about what's going on. That way I'm truly able to experience it rather than analyzing it and ruining it, right? Ignorance is bliss. But whoever said that wasn't ignorant. And if you were ignorant of bliss, would you truly know you were in bliss? So could you actually be blissful? I don't know. Whatever, later. I'm Austin with Euphoric Intentions. Hope you enjoyed my little spiel and rant. Maybe there was some euphoric moments in there. Maybe there were some moments of nonsense. But I hope those moments of nonsense allowed you to see the moments of euphoria. And that's all I have to say. Peace out. So here's my Instagram page. I'm scrolling right now through some of the things that I've uploaded. This is merchandise that I've designed, and hopefully with the utilization of all of these different social outlets, I can gain some traffic through my website. I actually gained 41 followers as of now for, you know, 18 posts, which seems to be a pretty good little amount in regards to what I've done and the amount of time that I've done it. And I have a link to my website, which I just clicked on, that's taking us to where it is that you can actually purchase this gear. And hopefully I can, you know, reach people who are interested in a lot of the same things that I am. And so this can really reflect a lot of the things that you want to say without you necessarily saying it, by you representing the gear that I have featured on this little website. And thank you all for watching my video. Make sure to check out my other platforms and check out some of the merchandise I have for sale. Thanks. Later.
Train your mind, now hear my words. Twitter, paid in little birds. If you've kept up with all my posts, then your life's just like a ghost, already dead in the machine. The screen and life, one's in between.